What happens when one of Hollywood's most powerful actresses decides she doesn't like what the media is saying about her? What happens when the shiny, carefully curated public image of a beloved star begins to crack, and instead of addressing the fallout with transparency, her team unleashes a legal war on the people talking about it? That's exactly what's happening right now in the explosive case of Blake Lively v. Justin Baldoni. But the story has taken a sharp, shocking turn, because this isn't just about a defamation lawsuit anymore. It's about journalists being subpoenaed, content creators being threatened, and an entire legal strategy aimed not at truth but at silence. And the internet is absolutely on fire over it. This week, in a move that stunned even seasoned legal analysts, Blake Lively's legal team, led by the infamous Brian Friedman, sent out a wave of subpoenas to independent journalists, YouTubers, podcasters, and even TikTok creators. They're crime talking about the case, sharing public documents, expressing opinions, quoting the very filings Blake's team submitted to the court. Now those creators are being told to turn over private emails, unpublished footage, confidential messages, and even the metadata behind their social media posts. Let that sink in. This is a full-on gloves-off attempt to control the narrative by legally intimidating anyone who dares to speak critically. And here's the kicker: this comes right after a judge denied Lively's request to seal certain damning evidence. Instead of taking the loss in stride, her team pivoted to scorched earth tactics, targeting the people amplifying that evidence online, not Baldoni's legal team, not the journalists who originally broke the story in mainstream outlets, but independent voices, creators who don't have million-dollar legal funds but do have an audience. This is the new battleground. Not courtrooms behind closed doors, but the open internet, where everyday people analyze what's happening in real time. And Blake Lively's legal team just made the mistake of thinking those people would roll over. They haven't. In fact, they're fighting back with legal motions, media alliances, and a growing public movement, rallying around hashtags like #WeAreNotSilenced and #BlakeLively subpoenas. This is now bigger than Lively or Baldoni. It's about who controls the story and whether truth can survive the weight of celebrity power. Because if this works, if Blake Lively wins this battle to force creators into silence, then every star with a scandal can do the same. Every powerful person can point at a critic and say, "Take it down, or I'll take you to court." This isn't just another celebrity drama. This is a test of who's really in charge of the truth. And we're here to tell the story they don't want told. It's the kind of legal twist no one saw coming, and one that has rattled the entertainment industry to its core. Blake Lively's legal team has now taken a dramatic and deeply controversial step in her ongoing feud with Justin Baldoni. The move issuing subpoenas to multiple journalists and YouTubers who have covered or commented on the case. This latest escalation, widely seen as an aggressive attempt to control the narrative and silence dissenting voices, has triggered massive backlash across Hollywood, the media, and the internet. The case, which originally began as a defamation dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni over leaked texts and accusations tied to a disputed production deal, has now spiraled far beyond a battle between two celebrities. This is now about press freedom, the First Amendment, and the ethics of celebrity power being used to intimidate independent media. Multiple sources, including legal insiders and media watchdog groups, are sounding the alarm. At the heart of this controversy is what some are calling an outright attempt to weaponize the legal system. Lively's attorneys, led by the aggressive and often polarizing Brian Friedman, have sent subpoenas demanding raw footage, unpublished notes, and even private communications from journalists and creators. Among those reportedly targeted, a list entertainment YouTubers, mid-tier investigative TikTokers, and even independent reporters who have been critical of Lively's narrative. This includes Paris Hilton, who broke a viral story on the lawsuit's initial filing, as well as commentary channels with massive reach. Several of these creators have now confirmed receipt of the subpoenas, and they are not staying silent. One YouTuber, speaking anonymously for fear of further legal retaliation, said, "This is absolutely chilling. They're not just asking for sources, they're trying to scare people into silence. They want everything I've ever said about Blake off the internet. That's not justice. That's a cover-up. The timing is particularly suspicious." These subpoenas come just days after a judge denied Lively's motion to seal certain discovery materials, including explosive text messages allegedly involving Blake, Reynolds, and senior studio executives. Instead of appealing the ruling through normal legal channels, her team is going after the very people who are exposing the documents, even if they're doing so legally. According to a court motion reviewed by media outlets, the subpoenas demand all unpublished footage related to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, all internal emails, or communications regarding the legal case source identities even in cases of off-the-record reporting. Metadata of social media posts discussing Blake Lively press advocacy groups, like Reporters Without Borders and the Committee to Protect Journalists, have condemned the subpoenas. One CPJ legal analyst stated this is a gross violation of press rights and could set a dangerous precedent if allowed to stand. But for Blake's team, the justification is simple. They claim these journalists are not acting as neutral observers, but rather participating in a coordinated smear campaign, ALLEGEDLY orchestrated by Baldoni's team. There's no hard evidence to support this accusation, and most experts believe it's a strategic attempt to deflect attention from Blake's mounting legal setbacks. If anything, the documents so far suggest that Lively and her PR machine have gone to great lengths to suppress unfavorable coverage and manipulate headlines in her favor. Now this case is no longer about leaked texts or shady contracts. It's about whether a celebrity's legal team can force journalists to hand over private communications just for reporting facts. And that question is heading straight for a courtroom showdown. At least two major outlets have already filed motions to quash the subpoenas, with a hearing expected within weeks. If the judge rules in Lively's favor, media organizations fear this will open the door for any powerful figure to go after critical coverage with legal threats. Meanwhile, the public reaction has been immediate and furious. Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit have exploded with the hashtag #BlakeLivelyOpens, with thousands accusing her of abusing the legal system to silence criticism. Calls to boycott her upcoming films are spreading like wildfire, and a Change.org petition demanding the court protect journalists from what's being called a legal intimidation campaign has gained over 200,000 signatures in 48 hours. Commentators from across the political spectrum are united in concern. On left-leaning platforms, this is being framed as an attack on civil liberties. On conservative shows, it's being blasted as Hollywood hypocrisy, preaching feminism and freedom while silencing critics behind closed doors. Even centrist legal commentators say this reeks of desperation. But the heat isn't just online. Inside Hollywood, the whispers are getting louder. Several publicists have allegedly advised clients to distance themselves from Blake Lively and her team until the case cools down. Some studios are even rumored to be reevaluating future deals, concerned about being caught in the media crossfire. This could be the biggest professional fallout of Blake's career. And as her critics grow louder, it's worth asking why. Now, why escalate this fight against media voices when the court was already pushing back against her requests to keep key evidence hidden? Many believe this was a panic move, a desperate attempt to claw back control after a series of legal misfires and public embarrassments. But if that's the case, it's backfiring spectacularly. Because now the focus isn't just on what's in those texts, it's on how far Blake Lively is willing to go to make sure you never see them. The subpoenas weren't just a shot across the bow, they were a declaration of war against independent commentary. What began as a legal disagreement over reputational damage has now mushroomed into something much bigger, a direct clash between Hollywood celebrity culture and the emerging world of digital journalism and grassroots reporting. And at the center of it all is Blake Lively, whose once shiny public persona has begun to crack under the weight of aggressive legal overreach. The list of content creators subpoenaed by Blake's legal team reads like a who's who of social media influence. A mid-sized TikTok legal analyst known for breaking down complex celebrity lawsuits for Gen Z audiences. A female-run YouTube channel that focuses on Hollywood hypocrisy and media accountability. A veteran entertainment blogger who has long been critical of the cult of personality surrounding A-listers. And perhaps most controversially, a high-profile podcast host who recently aired a leaked voicemail allegedly featuring Lively's publicist berating a journalist. Each of these creators received similar demands, some even hand-delivered by private investigators, instructing them to produce internal communications, private messages, draft scripts, and social media analytics. These subpoenas are not merely requests for clarification. They are tools of intimidation cloaked in legalese but backed by vast financial power and the full weight of a celebrity's legal war chest. In private group chats, several creators shared screenshots of the documents revealing strikingly similar language phrases, like failure to comply may result in contempt of court and requests for data. Going back as far as 2 years before the lawsuit even began, many recipients are not even parties to the case, merely observers or analysts. One subpoena allegedly demanded records from a content creator who had posted just to TikToks, totaling under 90 seconds in length. So what's the endgame here? Legal experts pointed to primary possibilities. 1. Scare them into silence by Burying creators in legal paperwork, Blake's team could be hoping that most will simply shut up and walk away. 2. Expose communication with Baldoni's team. If any of these creators had been in contact with Baldoni, even informally, it could give Lively's team grounds to argue there was a coordinated effort to harm her reputation. But here's the problem: there's no evidence that such coordination exists. And more importantly, journalists and commentators have a First Amendment right to report on matters of public interest, especially when it involves celebrities and legal filings that are by definition part of the public record. The public is now watching this situation evolve in real time. Comment sections are filled with disbelief, anger, and solidarity. One viral tweet summed it up perfectly. So Blake Lively can't win the argument in court, so now she wants to sue the internet into silence. Yikes. Another creator posted, "I'm not taking down a single video. If she wants to drag me into court, fine, but I'm not backing down just because she's famous." What makes this even more troubling is the selective nature of the subpoenas. Content that was critical of Justin Baldoni or sympathetic to Lively has reportedly been left untouched. This raises concerns that the goal isn't truth or discovery but retaliation. In other words, if you said the wrong thing about Blake, you're on her list. Some analysts have begun to describe this not as a legal maneuver, but as a form of digital McCarthyism, a blacklist aimed at those who stepped out of line. Even if these subpoenas never lead to actual depositions, the message is clear: talk about this at your own risk. But Blake's team may have underestimated the response. Instead of going quiet, creators are organizing. Some are joining forces to share legal resources and plan joint responses. Others are seeking support from advocacy groups like the ACLU and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. In fact, the EFF has already released a statement calling Lively's subpoenas deeply concerning and urging the court to protect content creators from being used as pawns in a celebrity legal battle. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's side has remained surprisingly silent. That silence, however, may be strategic. Sources close to Baldoni suggest his legal team is preparing to file a motion opposing Lively's subpoenas on constitutional grounds, invoking both the First Amendment and so-called anti-SLAPP laws. Strategic lawsuit against public participation. These laws designed to protect individuals from retaliatory lawsuits that chill speech could be the very thing that brings Lively's legal onslaught to a screeching halt. But there's more at stake than just this case. If Blake Lively succeeds in this tactic, it sets a chilling precedent not just for YouTubers and journalists, but for anyone who dares to speak out against powerful figures. Will every controversial opinion on a public lawsuit become grounds for a subpoena? Will investigative creators need legal counsel just to post a video? The broader community is now bracing for what comes next. Some creators are scrambling to back up their content, anticipating takedown threats. Others are checking their DMs and email threads for anything that could be misinterpreted. And many are just plain angry. They feel betrayed by a star they once admired, a star who used to represent independence, female empowerment, and charm, but who now stands accused of trying to crush dissent with cold legal precision. And this isn't the Blake Lively the public thought they knew. Up next in Part 3, we'll dive deeper into the history of this feud, including the timeline of leaks, the alleged cover-ups, and the moment this all turned from a legal dispute into a full-blown war. To truly understand how we arrived at this volatile and unprecedented moment, we need to rewind the clock back to the beginning of the Blake Lively v. Justin Baldoni saga. What started as whispers of a personal falling out has snowballed into one of the most dramatic and divisive legal battles Hollywood has seen in years. And at every turn, it seems the stakes have risen from private texts and NDA leaks to now constitutional battles over press freedom. Let's start with the original spark that lit this legal fire. According to multiple insider reports, the tension between Lively and Baldoni began behind the scenes of an ambitious film project. Baldoni, who has grown a reputation as a producer with a social mission, had allegedly approached Lively for a lead role in a female-centered drama with spiritual themes. Early drafts of the script circulated under the working title Wayfarer, and according to those close to the development, Lively was excited at first. Emails later unearthed during discovery suggest she praised the project as raw and unlike anything being made for women right now. But then came rewrites, studio pressure, creative differences, and by the third round of meetings, Lively's tone reportedly shifted. By the time casting and pre-production moved forward, the deal had soured. Lively pulled out, and her camp alleged that Baldoni had misrepresented the scope of the role and misled her about executive producing rights. In response, Baldoni's team accused Lively of attempting to control the project from behind the scenes, and most damningly of sabotaging the film. When she realized she wouldn't receive top billing, things escalated fast. Publicly, both remained silent, but privately battle lines were drawn. Then came the leaks. An anonymous source provided a batch of alleged text messages to a mid-tier entertainment outlet. The texts allegedly between Lively and her husband Ryan Reynolds included discussions about pulling funding strings, burying Baldoni's career, and leveraging studio friendships to kill the project quietly. Whether these messages were genuine or taken out of context remains up for debate. What is clear, however, is that their emergence detonated the first real explosion in public opinion. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about a movie deal gone bad, it was about celebrity power being used behind the scenes to silence a passion project. And this is when the media storm truly began. Within 24 hours, #WAYFARERgate was trending on Twitter. Major commentary channels began dissecting the text line by line. TikTok creators dramatized them in soap opera fashion. Reddit threads speculated about the secret power brokers behind the scenes in Hollywood, who decide what gets made and what doesn't. And then came the lawsuits. Baldoni filed first a defamation claim alleging that Lively's off-record statements paired with coordinated leaks had materially damaged his reputation and his company's standing with studios. He claimed to have lost a distribution deal and 2 endorsements as a direct result of Lively's actions. Lively countered with her own lawsuit citing defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. Her legal filings painted Baldoni as an obsessive and controlling presence who turned personal disappointment into a public vendetta. But despite her powerful legal team, the court denied several key motions, including Lively's attempt to block discovery of her text history and internal emails. It was that very denial that seemed to unhinge her legal strategy, because suddenly her team wasn't just fighting Baldoni anymore, they were fighting the media. The moment the judge ruled that certain communications were not protected under attorney-client privilege, several leaked documents began circulating online. First, a PDF dump allegedly from a studio executive's inbox. Then emails that appeared to show Ryan Reynolds attempting to exert pressure on a talent agent to avoid Justin at all costs. None of these leaks have been authenticated, but the media frenzy they sparked is undeniable. This is where the dynamic shifted entirely. No longer was Lively simply defending her name in court. She was defending her image in the public arena. And rather than adapt to the media pressure, her team doubled down, unleashing an army of legal letters, cease and desist notices, and finally the now infamous subpoenas. These moves, however, only made things worse. Each attempt to silence or punish creators backfired spectacularly. Every subpoena sent to a journalist resulted in 5 more talking about the censorship. The Streisand effect, the phenomenon where attempts to hide or suppress information only amplify it, was in full force. By this point, even her allies began to question the optics. One entertainment lawyer told Variety, "Off the record, I get defending your reputation. But once you start threatening journalists and podcast hosts, you're not protecting your image. You're destroying it." Even legal scholars began weighing in. Some questioned whether Lively's legal team truly understood the implications of subpoenaing journalists for unpublished materials. Others suggested the team was hoping the creators wouldn't know their rights, that the fear alone would be enough to make them retreat. But creators fought back. With crowdfunding, GoFundMes, and mutual legal aid, some began preparing for the fight of their lives. In an explosive YouTube roundtable that has since gone viral, 5 of the subpoenaed creators gathered to share their stories. One of them, known online as Legal T-Girl, told her audience, "This isn't just about Blake. This is about whether or not the internet is allowed to tell the truth. When powerful people don't like it, she thought we'd be scared. She thought we'd delete our videos and move on, but now we're louder than ever." The roundtable reached over 2 million views in 48 hours and spurred a new movement. #WeAreNotSilenced. Creators and journalists alike began posting black and white photos of themselves with tape over their mouths, a powerful visual protest against what they see as a Hollywood icon, weaponizing the courts to erase inconvenient truths. And while the court hasn't yet ruled on the subpoenas, there is one certainty: the battle lines are now drawn. This is no longer a feud about creative differences. It's a high-stakes confrontation over who gets to control the story and who gets to tell it. Coming up in Part 4, the legal backlash intensifies and Lively's strategy comes under fire as media organizations enter the ring and powerful figures start distancing themselves from the storm. What began as a private legal dispute between 2 Hollywood figures, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, has now become a defining moment in the battle over press freedom, creator rights, and the unchecked power of celebrity. In the digital age, Blake Lively's decision to subpoena journalists, YouTubers, and independent commentators has not only sparked one of the most heated public debates in recent memory, it has also redrawn the lines between public figures and those who hold them. accountable. In the rush to protect her brand, she may have irrevocably damaged it. This wasn't just a bad PR move. It was a strategic disaster, one that revealed the fault lines in how power, privilege, and influence are exercised in the 21st century media landscape. The attempt to silence dissent backfired spectacularly. Instead of ending the conversation, it fueled a movement, a collective uprising of voices from across platforms and ideologies, united by one simple idea: the truth matters. We've seen time and again that attempts to crush independent voices only amplify them. From Streisand to Lively, the pattern holds. You can try to erase criticism from the internet, but the internet fights back harder, louder, and more organized than ever. Blake's legal campaign will likely be studied for years, not just in journalism schools, but in law schools and media ethics programs. It has become a real-time lesson in the dangers of using legal tools to suppress free expression and the unexpected consequences of underestimating your critics. The court still has decisions to make, motions to quash are pending, protective orders are being reviewed, and a public hearing is expected to draw court attention. But regardless of the legal outcome, the cultural verdict is already in. Blake Lively crossed a line, and the public noticed. Hollywood is watching, studios are watching, other celebrities with skeletons in their closets are watching. Because if someone as beloved and powerful as Blake can trigger this kind of backlash for trying to silence the media, so can they. In the end, the people who stood up, the journalists, creators, and commentators, proved that you don't need a billion-dollar legal team to speak the truth. You just need a voice, an audience, and the courage to keep going when the system tries to shut you up, and that's exactly what they did. Blake Lively may have started a fire, but in doing so she lit a spark that's now become a wildfire, one that's burning through the old rules of Hollywood power and making room for something new, something more honest, more accountable, more free. This is no longer just a case, it's a turning point, and it's far from over.